Are you your own worst critic? Are there things you beat yourself up about and you just can't seem to be as kind to yourself as you would be to others? Then let's write about that. Today, we're gonna lean into that feeling and translate it into our music with this quick but powerful songwriting exercise. This exercise is gonna help you from a mental perspective and also from a musical perspective. As a mental exercise, this is just a great way to catch yourself in the moment where you're starting to beat yourself up and keep yourself from spiraling into that pit of self-defeat. And as a musical exercise, well, art is about expression. This exercise is a really great way of putting more you into your music and taking those things that you're thinking about all the time and channeling it somewhere where it can be useful for both you and your listeners. You'll begin to explore new emotions and new ways to tell stories and convey messages that come from deep in here. So let's get started. This exercise is pretty straightforward. First, I want you to think of something that you're hard on yourself about or that you've gotten feedback about recently that kind of shook you up a bit. It helps to ask yourself the question, what's something about myself that I really want to change? What do I give myself a hard time about? When I call myself names, what is it usually about? What we're about to do is find a way to analyze these feelings with kindness instead of with criticism. Do you have your thing? Because if it came to you that quickly, chances are it really needs this exercise. So go ahead and just in 2 or 3 sentences, summarize what that is at the top of your page. That's step 1. For the second step, we're going to exercise some compassion. A lot of times when we have a thing that we don't like about ourselves, we tend to play it on a loop in our head, and all we hear is this negative criticism. We might resort to name calling. We might resort to seeing ourselves as something to be solved, something to be fixed. Well, here's the deal. It might be something that you want to work on, right? But that doesn't mean that you're bad or you're broken, and it doesn't mean that it needs to be received with frustration or self-hatred. So the key to step 2 is we're gonna take some time and process these feelings in the form of giving this as advice to someone whose feelings we care very deeply about and whose feelings we don't wanna hurt, but we also wanna help them grow. If it helps, think of a person. Think of someone that you know that you can imagine just sitting across from them and giving them this feedback. And I want you to free write any thoughts that come to your mind. Remember, free writing is no barriers, no filters, just let it all pour out. I want you to free write any feelings or thoughts that come to your mind when looking at these 3 prompts. If you were giving this feedback to someone else, what would you want them to know? How would you tell them? And how would you want them to feel afterwards? Try to make this a habit when you're in the moment, right? Because that's usually when you can capture the raw feelings that are coming to you. The great thing about free writing is that it starts to get these ideas, whatever you're thinking, right, out of your head and onto paper, somewhere where it's manageable and controllable. The reason that's really great for songwriting is because when your ideas are in your head, when you've got them stored, they'll clash, they'll get lost. They're gonna get tucked all the way back here until you forget that you had it. Maybe years later, it'll come back up. And so free writing gives you a really great space. There are some people who do this daily. Just get the ideas out of their head based on a prompt. This is just one form of how we're doing that, but I like to multitask. So we're gonna turn it into a form of self-care. I'm gonna be a little bit vulnerable, and I'm gonna show you what this looked like for me when I did the exercise most recently. There's been a trend of me receiving feedback on my apologies. I tend to over-explain and over-excuse myself, and I lose the apology in the explanation. Most of the time, things would have turned out better if I had just apologized, acknowledged their feelings and what I did, and asked how I could do better in the future. So you can see a lot of these thoughts reflected here in my free write, but in the way that I would have said it to someone who isn't me, right? Until I can learn to be more kind to myself, no name calling, no self-defeat, just advice, kindness, and acknowledgement of how this could be improved on in the future. That's really what we're doing today. So step 1 was coming up with that thing about yourself that you tend to be hard on yourself about. Step 2 is free writing based on the 3 prompts that I gave you. And really thinking, how might I say this to someone whose feelings I care deeply about? And I don't want to coddle them, but at the same time, I don't want to just completely turn and twist the knife. Now, if this was just an exercise, you just wanted to get the thoughts out of your head, you can use this for inspiration later. When you want to turn this into a song, here are some things to keep in mind. One of the things I'll recommend, I do talk about in one of my videos about how to turn an idea into a full page of lyrics. So I followed that exercise to come up with a chorus From there, I hope you've been building a library of melodies and musical motifs like I've been telling you to, because this is where it comes in handy when you can just go and find these ideas that may not have gotten full shape yet and start to marry them with new ideas. So I went back to my library of melodies, went back and found a little guitar ditty that I had drawn up at one time, and I'm gonna use those for this song. You'll find that after you've done the free write, the mood that you're in, where your head is at, and the spirit of the words is going to translate into the music, into the sounds that you create. So between following my lyric writing exercise and going back into my library of musical motifs that I've built, I came up with a chorus in 10 minutes. Here it is. Sorry, spin my head around. You'll be okay, just put the shovel down. And I know you got your reasons, you're all wrapped up in your feelings. What I guess I'm trying to say is just shut up and say sorry. So not only did I make some peace with myself in the moment, but I also got a song out of the deal. It's kind of a win-win situation. I'm curious how you all use songwriting for self-care. Please let us know in the comments, and also let me know, how did this exercise work for you? Did it do anything for you musically? Did it do anything for you mentally? I am definitely not a trained psychiatrist, but I do want to help all of you grow in the way that has helped me. I've been MLY. Y'all have been amazing songwriters. Happy songcrafting and self-care. I'll catch y'all next time.